If you had to guess the most successful pirate in history, you might think of names like Blackbeard, Longben, or Black Bart. But the truth is far more surprising. The most powerful pirate in history wasn't a man. She was a woman who began life with nothing, and ended up commanding a pirate empire so large that even great naval powers tried and failed to bring it down. At her peak, she controlled 1,800 ships and 70,000 pirates across the South China Sea. This is the story of the pirate queen who ruled the water. Her name was Zheng Yi Sao. She was born in 1775 in southern China, in the busy port city of Guangzhou, a place where the air always smelled of salt, fish, and trade, and where foreign ships constantly came and went like clockwork. At the time, the Qing Empire was one of the largest and most powerful states in the world, but that power faded along its southern edges. The coast was crowded with merchants, smugglers, and fishermen, and far from the reach of strict imperial control. Out here, the sea was not just trade, it was survival and often opportunity. We don't know much about Zheng Yi Sao's childhood. Records rarely focused on women like her. But by the time she was an adult, she had ended up working in a floating brothel, one of the many wooden houses anchored in the harbor, where sailors spent their money between voyages, and rumors moved faster than ships. And it was here that she met a man who would change her life. The pirate captain named Zhang Yi. He was already powerful in the waters around southern China, commanding ships that raided merchant routes and competed with rival pirate groups. He took her as his wife, and she entered a world completely unlike anything she had known before, one built on violence, loyalty, and shifting alliances at sea. From that point on, she lived aboard ships, moving through the crowded waters of the South China Sea. Zhang Yi's fleet was part of a growing pirate alliance, later known as the Red Flag Fleet, a loose network of pirate crews who cooperated when it suited them, but still remained independent under their own captains. Zhang Yi was one of the most powerful among them, but there was no single ruler, no unified command. It was a fragile system, part cooperation, part competition. Some fleets worked together for reigns, others turned on each other when opportunity appeared. Then, in 1807, everything changed. Zheng Yi died unexpectedly at sea. In most pirate worlds, that would have meant collapse. His fleet would have broken apart overnight. Rival captains would have fought for control. The alliance would have dissolved into chaos. But that isn't what happened. Instead, Zheng Yi Sao stepped forward. At first, it wasn't obvious what would come next. She was not a traditional naval commander, and many captains expected her influence to fade quickly. But the fleet didn't fall apart. Some captains accepted her leadership immediately. Her husband's fleet had become the strongest within the alliance, and working with her meant protection, shared raids, and access to the largest share of spoils at sea. Refusing her meant isolation, and isolation at sea meant vulnerability. Others resisted, so she enforced her authority. Stronger fleets under her command were used to suppress rivals. Ships that refused her orders were attacked, captured, or stripped of resources. Over time, resistance became a losing position. What had once been influence became something else entirely, authority that had to be obeyed. She reorganized the fleet into structured divisions, assigning trusted commanders to each group of ships. And then she introduced something almost unheard of among pirates, a strict code of law. No stealing from the fleet, no disobedience, no unauthorized dealings with prisoners or civilians. Loot had to be recorded and shared according to rules. Violations were punished harshly, often with death. It was brutal, but it worked. In a world defined by chaos, she created order. The fleet stopped behaving like scattered pirate crews and began operating like a single organized force at sea. As her system grew stronger, another shift happened. Even captains who were not fully loyal found it harder to leave. Independent piracy became more dangerous. Her network controlled key waters and trade routes. Outside the system meant fewer allies, fewer supplies, and far greater risk. Inside it meant protection, coordination, and survival. Over time, joining her became less about loyalty and more about necessity. Through force, alliance, and structure, she turned a loose coalition of pirate fleets into a unified system under her control. Captains still commanded their own ships, but the rules, strategy, and discipline came from her. One of her most important commanders was Zhang Bao. He had originally been brought into the pirate system, and according to most accounts, was formally adopted by Zheng Yi Sao as a kind of son within her inner circle of leadership. As he grew older, Zhang Bao became one of the most powerful captains in the fleet, and one of her closest allies. But some later accounts suggest something more controversial, that their relationship may have developed into marriage. If true, it would have been highly unusual, and even scandalous in the social norms of the time. She was older, a widow, already established as the supreme authority of the fleet, and Zhang Bao had once been under her command structure. But within the logic of pirate politics, relationships like this were not just personal, they were also strategic. By tying her closest and most capable commander directly to her, she strengthened loyalty at the very top of the system. In a coalition built on shifting alliances and fragile trust, securing the loyalty of powerful captains was essential to holding everything together. Whether as an adopted son, a trusted lieutenant, or a rumored husband, Zhang Bao represented the same thing: the inner core of people who made her authority real at sea. For several years, her fleet remained one of the most powerful forces in the South China Sea. As her power grew, the world around her was changing. Regional trade powers, including European colonial ports like Macau, where European powers maintained armed ships and commercial patrols, added another layer of pressure to the sea routes pirates depended on. But the burden of suppressing piracy still fell mainly on the Qing Navy and local forces. In 1810, after many years of conflict, the Qing Dynasty was no longer just reacting to piracy with scattered naval battles. It was tightening its response strategically, offering pardons to smaller pirate groups in exchange for surrender, while increasing coordinated pressure along the southern coast. One by one, smaller pirate captains began to break away and surrender. Figures like Podai represent this wider shift. Entire groups of pirates choosing amnesty over continued resistance. The alliance that once grew through expansion was now slowly shrinking under pressure. And unlike many of her rivals, she didn't ignore the change. She adapted to it. She sailed with her remaining officers to meet Qing officials in Guangzhou and negotiate surrender. According to later accounts of the meeting, she stood before imperial authorities and spoke in the language of submission expected from defeated enemies. "We are like ants and insects. Save us from the flood and fire. Pardon our former crimes and open for us a new way of life from this day forward. We solemnly swear to sell our swords and buy cows. If we dare to act with duplicity, you may kill us at once." And just like that, the war ended not in a final battle. The Qing government granted amnesty instead of punishment. Many of her crew were pardoned or absorbed into state forces. Her ships were dismantled or taken into service. She stepped away from piracy alive, wealthy enough to live in comfort, and untouched by the fate that usually ends stories like hers. What happened next is harder to separate from legend. Later accounts claim she settled into a quiet life in Guangzhou, with some stories saying she ran a gambling house after leaving the sea. There are also rumors surrounding her relationship with Zhang Bao, her most trusted commander. Some accounts suggest the two eventually married, while others even claim they had a son together. Historians debate how much of this is fact and how much is legend. What is certain is that she outlived Zhang Bao by many years and died in 1844 at around the age of 69. She disappeared from the sea, but even after she vanished, the legend lives on.